Here's page 2. Do you think the Indians around here would ever get mad and massacre folks like they did up north? Wondered Warren, tying his shirt up in a little bundle. No, sir, said Tom, not these Indians. Not Indian John, anyhow, said Caddie. She had just unfastened the many troublesome little buttons on the back of her tight-waisted dress, and before taking it off, she paused a moment to see if she could balance a freshwater clamshell on her big toe. She found that she could. No, not Indian John, she repeated decidedly, having got the matter of the clamshell off her mind. Even if he does have a scalp belt, she added. The thought of the scalp belt made her hair prickle delightfully up her scalp lock grew. Nah, said Tom. The fellows who spread those massacre stories are just big-mouthed scared cats who don't know the Indians, I guess. Big-mouthed scared cats, repeated Warren, admiring Tom's command of language. Big-mouthed scared cats, echoed a piping voice from the bank above. 7-year-old Hetty, who fluttered wistfully on the outer edge of their adventures, filed away Tom's remark in her active brain. It would be useless to tell to Mother. Some time when Mother was complaining about Tom's language, the three below had paid no attention to Hetty's intrusion. Their red heads, shining in the sunlight, did not even turn in her direction. Hetty's hair was red, too, like Father's, but somehow, in spite of her hair, she belonged on the dark-haired side of the family where Mother and Clara and all the safe and tidy virtues were. She poised irresolutely on the back above the three adventurous ones. If they had only turned around and looked at her, but they were enough in themselves. She could not make up her mind what to do. She wanted to go with them, and yet she wanted just as much to run home and tell Mother and Clara what they were about to do. Hetty was the self-appointed news-bearer of the family. Wild horses could not prevent her from being the first to tell whatever it was that happened. Tom and Caddie and Warren finished undressing, tied the clothes into tight bundles, and stopped into the river. The water was low after a long, hot summer, but still it looked cold and deep. Hetty shuddered. She had started to undo one shoe, but now she quickly tied it up again. She had made up her mind. She turned around and flew across the fields to tell her mother. Tom knew from experience that he could just keep his chin above water and touch bottom with his toe across the deep part of the river. It would have been over Caddie's and Warren's heads, but if they held on to Tom and felt their feet paddling, they could just keep their heads above water. They had done it before. Tom was first, with his bundle of clothes balanced on his head. Caddie came next, clutching Tom's shoulder with one hand and holding her bundle of clothes on top of her head with the other. Warren clung to Caddie's shoulder in the same manner, balancing his own clothes with his free hand. They moved slowly and carefully. If Tom lost his footing or fell, they would all go down together and be swept away by the current towards the village below. But the other two had every confidence in Tom, and Tom had not the slightest reason to doubt himself. They looked like three beavers moving silently across the current, three heads with three bundles, and a little wake of ripples trailing out behind them. Last of all came Nero, the farm dog, paddling faithfully behind them, but Hetty was already out of sight. Presently there was solid riverbed beneath their feet again. The three children scrambled out on the other side, shook themselves as Nero did, and pulled on their dry, wrinkled clothing. "Hurry up, Caddie," said Tom. "You're always the last to dress." "So would you be too, Tom, if you had so many buttons," protested Caddie. She came out of the bushes, struggling with the back of her blue denim dress. Relenting, Tom turned his superior intelligence to the mean task of buttoning her back up. "I wish Mother'd let me wear boys' clothes," she complained. "Ha!" said Warren. "She thinks you're a tomboy enough already, but they're so much quicker," said Caddie regretfully. Now that they were dressed, they had sped along the riverbank in the direction of the smoke. Several Indian canoes were drawn up on shore in the shelter of a little cove, and beyond them in the clearing the Indians moved to and fro about a fire. Propped onto two logs was the crude framework with the canoe, which was already partly covered with birch bark. The smell of the birch smoke and hot pitch filled the air. Caddie lifted her head and sniffed. It was perfume to her, as sweet as the perfume of the clover fields. Nero sniffed too, and growled low in his throat. The three children stopped at the edge of the clearing and watched. Even friendly Indians commanded fear and respect in those days. A lean dog with a wolfish look came forward, barking. He and Nero circled about each other, little ridges of bristling hair along their spines, their tails wagging suspiciously. Suddenly the Indian dog left Nero and came toward Caddie. "Look," said Caddie. "It's Indian John's dog." The dog's tail began to wag in a friendlier manner, and Caddie reached out and patted his head. By this time the Indians had noticed the children. They spoke among themselves and pointed. Some of them left their work and came forward. In all the 7 years since the Woodlawns had come from Boston to live in that big house of the prairie, the Indians had never got used to seeing them. White men and their children they had seen often enough, but never such as those who wore, above their pale faces, hair the color of flame and sunset. During the first year of the children spent in Wisconsin, the Indians had come from all the country around to look at them. They had come in groups, crowding into Mrs. Woodlawn's kitchen in their silent moccasins, touching the children's hair and staring. Poor Mrs. Woodlawn, frightening nearly out of her wits, had fed them bread or beans or whatever she had on, and they had gone away satisfied. That's page 7. We'll continue page 7 after this message.